Good evening, Des Moines, Iowa. This is the Doc. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here on WebcastOneLive.com, coming to you from the beautiful, lush, air-conditioned studios on the in the downtown Des Moines Skywalk area. I'm Lefty. This is Doc and Lefty, and with me, as always, is my larger-than-life cohort in evil, the good doctor, Dr. Pat Bertroche. Doc, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm not particularly evil. I'm just well-versed.
I called you my cohort in evil.
Well, I know.
I was extending
this, but don't include me with the liberals. I'm glad you finally understand that liberals are evil.
The discussions that you and I have would lead me to believe that if we founded our own Legion of Doom, you and I would have a tussle over who Dr. Doom was going to be. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely.
We had the Labor Day holiday. How was your weekend?
It was pretty good. I got to spend it with some family, and it was nice, beautiful, good riding weather. Just going to warn all the riders out there, please pay attention to your speed, because if you don't pay attention to your speed, you can do something silly, like get a ticket.
Oh, man.
Oh, I know. I had you on the phone. Blake. So.
I caved this weekend. I caved over this weekend and finally went to Prairie Meadows with my girlfriend.
Oh, really? That's really nice.
She loves going. She loves spending a few bucks playing some slot machines and maybe doing a little bit of blackjack. I don't play blackjack because I don't want to make everybody else at the table very angry. I don't know how to play very well. Yeah. But so we kind of, we had a couple of cocktails and we played a couple of games and we weren't spending a lot of money. And then we sat down at the roulette table.
Yeah.
And walked out $200 up. And because I'm not much of a gambler, I said $200, that's good enough for us. And we left and we actually took money from Prairie Meadows for the very first time, I think, ever. So it was a pretty good weekend all the way around.
Absolutely.
And but all sort of light stuff aside, I did want to make one point, and I wanted to pick your brain about it in this first segment. I was thinking about it
first I have to find my brain.
Right. You have no idea this is coming because I thought of it on the drive over here from the office before the show.
All right.
But you are familiar with the mental health commitment procedures in this state.
Yep.
You are aware that there are two, essentially. There's substance abuse and a finding of mental impairment. Mm-hmm. And you are also aware that those findings can come with a fairly severe, not penalty, but severe outcome, as in involuntary confinement for an indefinite amount of time. You're aware it doesn't.
It can get
theoretically.
To that, yes. Theoretically, it could.
If you are a mentally impaired person, you never ever could. Theoretically, the way the law is, would never get out if you never got better.
No, and that's true.
Under a mental health hold. Yep. Okay, and I'm not here today to debate the merits of that policy, because there are some people who need that help. As part of my law practice, I do a lot of that kind of stuff where I am a respondent's attorney. If an application has been filed against you as a severely mentally impaired person, they appoint me as the attorney. I go down, try and negotiate something with the county attorney and the judge and my client, and work something out that hopefully is in the best interest of the client, because that's the overarching concern. I've had that because they want the person to get better. It's not a criminal thing. It's not punishment. It's about mental health. It's about getting that person better.
You bet.
Overall, Doc, how would you rate the mental health commitment procedures in Polk County, Marion, and the surrounding rural counties, Marion County, Warren County? What kind of grade overall would you give them?
I'd give it a solid C.
Solid C.
The reason is, in some ways, like Blake pointed out, it's really easy to get a committal.
Very easy.
And that is good news for those who truly need it. There are some people with no family that have mental health issues or have addiction issues that wind up homeless under the 2nd Street Bridge or the Court Street Viaduct. There's all kinds of bad things that can go on there. And these people then can get some help, and it helps get them into the system so that we can start treating it, hopefully get them back to being productive citizens, or at least not living under the bridge and creating a public health hazard, essentially. Now, I give it an F because ex-wives get mad at their husbands, as ex-husbands get mad at the wives, and next thing you know, they're sitting 48 hours over to Iowa Lutheran waiting for the judge to let them go. And
you can abuse it really, really easily.
Easily.
And it's not necessarily even a government thing, but I'm going to talk about the government here in a second, which I know that you'll love. It's not necessarily even it's a government system that's abused by private people sometimes. I wouldn't even say that it happens very often because judges are pretty good. They're pretty savvy about picking the good, the people who need it from the people who don't. They're usually pretty good about that. However, I got appointed on 2 cases here in the last week or so where the VA filed papers on 2 veterans who were being seen because they'd had and these aren't guys who are just out and about. These are long-term folks who are on their radar who get services from them for a long time because of schizoaffective disorder and other serious mental health issues that if treated, you can live a perfectly normal life. You can have an apartment and do well and live off your benefits. And have a job. Yep. Exactly. It's not a death sentence. So I don't want to, but these guys, but it's also hard to keep people on their meds sometimes. They're not medication compliant a lot of the time. And that's where the VA steps in and for the most part does a good job. However, my last 2 cases, we had the doctor and the caseworker file papers on 2 veterans to get them committed, recommending inpatient hospitalization, which is by definition an indeterminate amount of time because you don't get out till you get better or until they're satisfied that you can leave. And then didn't want to take the 45-minute trip down to Knoxville to answer for it. And I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. The law says that the applicant, at least, the person who signs the application, has to be present unless the respondent, my client, is okay with waiving it. If you are going to lock a person up for a maximum of 5 days without a hearing, because that's what the law says, you can be held for 5 days without a judge to see you. Maximum 5 days. It's usually 2, but it's 5 days is the max. I'm sorry. You should look the court. You should look the court in the eye and look the respondent in the eye and testify under oath as to why that person needs to be held longer than that. Because there are people who beat their kids who get out, who bond out, and are just, hey, pay $5,000 and you're back on the street.
Well, here's the other problem with that. Treatment, they don't get treatment unless they voluntarily want it. So they're down there in a locked cell. I mean, that's what it is. And with other people that are suffering from delusions and hallucinations, paranoia, aggression, violence, for 5 days without any treatment. Now they get food and clothing and housing and they're taken care of, but they don't get any treatment unless it's voluntary. And then at the end of the whole thing, guess who's stuck with the bill for this committal? It isn't the applicant; it's the person that got stuck there.
Yep, I'm saying
that is a good way to stop any kind of custody fight with your ex. And I probably see it twice a month in my office.
And if you are going, and I'm saying, if you're going to attempt to stick somebody with those kind of issues, with the bill, with a lack of treatment, the VA does a pretty decent job of treating people when they first get there, but it's a tough thing. I'm not trying to call the VA out on its sort of treatment regimen. You'd be able to speak to that better than me. What I'm saying is, from a due process perspective, if I have the potential of being locked up, the person accusing me of being mentally impaired needs to be there, needs to look me in the eye, and the fact that the VA twice now has gotten offended and has gotten its backup about doing what the law requires really irritates me. So I just need to get that off my chest.
Yeah, it's not a good situation overall, and I wish people would come up with a better system, but when we've tried to come up with a better system, NAMI and the National Alliance for Mentally Ill steps in and really makes it so it makes it even worse. And not that I'm against NAMI, I'm not, but sometimes they're a little misguided. We'll be back right after the break. What should we talk about? You want to talk about Syria or McWages?
I think that we probably have to, in honor Labor Day, we got to talk about the minimum wage.
Next. Yep. All right, we're going to hit McWages next. We'll be back right after break. Listen to Doc and Lefty on WebcastOneLive.com. Thanks for tuning in.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty, and we just had the Labor Day weekend. Really nice. I saw your Happy Labor Day post, and it was really heartwarming. And
Yes.
and I didn't want to kind of ruin the mood by pointing out that the only reason that we have a Labor Day is because Grover Cleveland, under pressure from the unions back in the 19th century,
Under pressure,
signed it into law. Well, it was a way to pacify the unions because he'd been engaging
because they're so aggressive.
not a lot of
You have to pacify them.
because the labor situation at the end of the 19th century was pretty awful, and the unions and Grover Cleveland had been elected to be a trust buster, didn't do enough trust busting, and so the unions were mad at him. As a bone, he tosses them Labor Day to kind of pacify him. Well, it didn't work. He didn't get renominated for the next presidential election, I think in 1896 or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, Labor Day is a holdover of the old labor movements from the 19th and early 20th centuries, and such as the weekend, such as paid holidays and vacations, and the minimum wage.
Hold on, we're gonna stop that right there. Now, in all fairness, I have to tell you, I responded to your Facebook post about the share show. Yes, I did. And Phaedra was a little bit concerned that it was unfair because you couldn't fight back. I told her I don't worry about you fighting back, but I did say, of course, Blake is wrong on the minimum wage and Republicans, and of course everything else. So that's my response. If you want to come back, it's just typical. But number two, not to tout somebody else, but John Stossel has a really good breakdown of the fallacies of the weekend. I think you're correct on the Labor Day and minimum wage, and how these things really weren't a result of union work, and that it's a modern myth that we have that doesn't stand up factually. So we'll agree to disagree on that one.
I would love if you got Mr. Stossel on the phone.
If I could
to
get
defend
him, he's got
your argument.
He's got a website and he's got a show, and he does.
But anyway,
right
the minimum wage is sort of kind of the hot. It's an issue right now because there are a lot of fast food workers out east. I don't think it's really caught on here in the heartland, but mainly on the East Coast, maybe on the coasts just in general, that are protesting and had sort of an informal strike. I mean, it was a strike, but it's not supported by any major labor union, I don't believe. I mean, there's solidarity, but I don't think that like the AFL-CIO or the Teamsters have gotten involved.
Not that I'm aware of.
And so I think that they just self-organized, and in a lot of places walked off the job.
Well, now I wouldn't say self-organized, because I saw several articles about how, even from Huffington Post, that said this is, I think the term was used, moribund. This is one of these protests that could get the moribund unions back in the limelight and everything else. So I do believe there are unions out there helping.
Oh, well, that's okay.
But I don't think, but there's no official, hey, we're all going to go on strike.
Well, to me, that's, I mean, if they want to try and do that, I don't have a problem with that necessarily, because I feel, any sort of labor organization, that's going to happen if people want to participate, then they, can obviously participate. And that's, to me, that's not so problematic necessarily, because the argument is not necessarily even about the minimum wage. The minimum wage has been litigated and resolved in favor of having a minimum wage for the last 70 years.
Yep.
Now, and there's been a lot of data back and forth. There's been a lot of arguments back and forth, and it's going to come up for a fight if the president ever gets around to it with everything else that's going on. Barack Obama wanted to raise it to $9 an hour. Now, I know that you're against that.
Well, yeah. I'm against the minimum wage.
Because you're against the minimum wage in general. But see, that's what you hear. You don't hear people talk about incrementalism. You hear them, we either want it or we don't. And these folks out east and some of these fast food workers want to get their pay up to $15 an hour.
Yes.
Now, we have talked about shocks to the system in other contexts with the tax reform issue, all kinds of things. I think both of us would agree that such a large jump would be problematic for any business, a shock to the system. But Doc, tell me why an incremental approach to get fast food workers up to a living wage is a problem.
Well, first of all, let's talk about, this fallacy of a living wage. Whenever you increase a living wage, let's say we take it from 7.25 up to $9 an hour. What businesses do in response is they don't hire, or they fire, or they begin to automate, or they raise prices, or in a lot of cases, all of the above. They might try to start marketing something more pricey, like since we're going to be talking specifically about fast food, the McCafes. That was a response to an increased minimum wage. And what happens is when you start increasing minimum wage, you start decreasing opportunities for low-level employees. And you have to have that. Not everybody can start out at $9 an hour. And let's face it, not every job's worth $9 an hour. Dropping fries in a basket is not worth $9 an hour.
No, I'm going to stop you right there.
But it isn't.
No, I'm going to stop you because that's a separate argument.
You have to that you have to separate the job from the person?
No. What I wanted to address both pieces of it. I'm not meaning to cut you off, but
knock yourself out.
I feel that the economic argument is separate from the normative argument that you're making. I feel like if we're going to talk that, and that's why this gets heated.
Well, then let's stick with the economics.
Right.
Save your piece on economics. We got a couple minutes.
Well,
left here.
when we're talking about, first of all, the economic data over the last 70 years does not support the contention that raising the minimum wage raises unemployment. It's just not. It's not there. It's either nil, zero effect, or slightly positive, 1% to 3%. Now, I read a recent blog post, and by recent I mean it was probably in the early winter of this year, by Richard Posner, the star district appellate judge over in the 7th Judicial District over in Illinois. Richard Posner is this economic whiz kid judge on the Court of Appeals over in the 7th District. He's awesome about economic things. Really, really smart guy. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but he's a really smart guy. And he says that while it's not necessarily that it raises unemployment overall, and maybe you see a tick up in employment 1% to 3%, but it definitely hurts lower or more vulnerable populations like teenagers, women with family, like single mothers, and the elderly. What do you think about that?
I think that if that's what he said, I would agree with that. That's what I see in my practice. Of course, I deal with a lot of low-income people. A lot of them, in fact, the last time about 9 years ago, when the minimum wage was increased, I had a lot of people come in and say, I don't have a job anymore. Now what am I going to do? There are people out there that don't have the skills necessary to get a high-paying job. And economically, I understand, part of my argument with unemployment, which we've gone over several times, is the way they actually measure it. It's not consistent over time. It does have a tendency to vary, and they don't count people have been unemployed for a long period of time. They only count the people on the unemployment rolls. And as we both know, there's a lot of people off the rolls now that are still unemployed. So you can't really take a look at the numbers they provide as something that is going to be in the least ways accurate. The second thing is, when you raise the cost of labor, which for businesses run just about 30%, when you raise that to 33% or 35% of the product, then what you have is they will start automating, reducing the number of people that are hired, and therefore the people that could enter the workforce could have, some extra income for whatever reason aren't. And that's just what I see, and that's what I know, and that these people don't then get hired.
What I can say is that it does functionally make sense that a higher wage would cause certain businesses, not all of them, but certain businesses, to lay off some people. The resultant effect of the people kept on, though, is from a macroeconomic level is so great that it eats up. And this is what economists argue, that the reason we don't see catastrophic unemployment because of the minimum wage just by itself is that the economic benefit for those folks goes up. And if you are shifting workers from job to job that can afford them, creating pockets in other industries with different wage levels or what have you, because even if you were to take somebody from a relatively low retail job and move them to someplace else, manufacturing, for example, that's slightly higher paying, that would be a net benefit to them, even though they lost their job over here. And so we got
to take a break right now,
and we'll get into the normative side of this. What work is worth after the break.
Yeah, all right. And so the Polk County Republicans are having their fall picnic here, September 7th. That's just this Saturday.
It's this Saturday.
Holy smokes! I need to get my press pass. Anyway, and you need to get yours too. I hope you're planning on going.
Well, we'll see. We'll have to talk about it.
All right. So they're going to be having it this Saturday. It's going to be a great time. It starts about 4:30 or 5, something like that. They're going to have every speaker that you can shake a stick at on the Republican Party. It's a great time to meet and greet the governor and the lieutenant governor, or the people that are running for Senate, Congressman Latham. I'm not sure if Congressman King's going to be showing up, but it's going to be a fantastic time. It's out of Jalapeno Pete's. It's got good food. A couple of years ago, Senator Grassley showed up, and that was really quite an interesting evening. So there's their website, polkgop.com, and their number 280-6438. You can talk to Daryl Carney or Ryan Keller, either one, to get your tickets to go. It'll be worth the effort. Plus, if you want a sponsored table, you can do that. Now, we're going to get back to what you were just describing, really is what we call creative destruction. And that's what economists talk about all the time when you have new technologies move in. Mm-hmm. And the problem there's not a problem with creative destruction, because I understand that. But the problem is you have to also understand that there are people that are not capable of developing those new skills in another area.
Well,
you're talking a significant portion. A lot of my patients have a job, right, putting a nut on a bolt, because that's what they can do. They're not going to have the skills to go out into a manufacturing position.
Here's my question then. If somebody, and so what are those workers? Well, that kind of dovetails nicely into the normative question, the morality question of what work is worth. Now, you hear this a lot from people, and you said it yourself, that flipping burgers is not worth $15 an hour. It's not. No. That's what people say. Well, not to disparage the administrative professionals who I know and dearly love around the state, around the world, and around my own household, but I mean, you'd pay somebody to answer your phones $15 an hour if they're doing other things like helping you file, helping you do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. If I was going to hire somebody at my office because I need somebody to do that, to answer my phones, do my filing, keep my schedule, all that kind of stuff, I'd be hard pressed to find somebody who'd be willing to do that for less than $15 an hour. Once again, we're talking in a pure philosophical place. If you argue that flipping burgers is necessary to a society because it gets food to people who want to buy it, and filing is necessary to a society because it assists an attorney who works in the society, although maybe attorneys aren't necessary.
I don't think attorneys are necessary.
Leaving that out of it, for argument's sake that it is, then what about those two jobs makes one worth more and one worth less if their necessity to the society is relatively equal? People got to eat. People have to have lawyers.
Well, but you see that's the problem. You have to define what that job's worth. Now, I'll be very upfront. Minimum wage, hike it or not, is not going to impact my business, because I pay my people more than minimum wage.
That's right. And a lot of people do.
Because there's three things that go into the jobs that I have. One, we're out front. We're a customer service, because that's what doctors are. We're a service industry. So I have to have somebody that can answer the phones, can organize my schedule, and has these skills to be able to interface with the public. Now, I will tell you, the gal I got is absolutely wonderful. You know, we never have a complaint about her one. Now, the other job that I have is my office manager. Now, she has a different skill set. Her job is to collect money. It's really tough to say, now, how are you going to pay for this visit, right? So I get a lot of complaints about her, but yet she sits there and takes it all in stride. That's a different skill set. Neither one of these skill sets are people that make $9 an hour are going to have. People that enter into the workforce young aren't going to have these skills. You have to develop these skills. And if you don't get a job young, you are not going to be able to get these job skills available. Now, I will tell you, I advertised a job scanning my old files so I can be in compliance with Obamacare. Now, all I did is advertise at minimum wage, $7.25 an hour, sitting there scanning files. Now, all you have to do is put the file in the scanner. That's all you have to do. That job's not worth $7.25 an hour. It's not even worth $3 an hour, right? If I could buy a monkey without government regulations interfering, I would have a trained monkey putting these files in there. I had 32 people apply. A lot of them were underage. And the problem is, I would have loved to hire somebody that was underage, give them a break, but they have to sign a contract that says they have to keep things confidential. Well, if you're underage, you can't sign a contract. So, now here I am hiring this gal wants to be in PA school. That's what I hired her for. Well, obviously to me, she's worth a whole lot more than $7.25 an hour, but the job wasn't. And that's what you have to face. Let's face it, you have the opportunity and the option to leave a job and go get better skills. You have the option to get yourself better and to get more money. And having the government mandate getting more money, $1.75 up, that isn't going to help the people that really want to work. And it's not really going to help people that want to give jobs. If I had to pay everybody in my office $15 an hour, including the scanner, the bottom line is I would have to start not taking Medicaid and Hawkeye and the other state incomes because they just don't pay.
Well, let me provide the flip side of that argument for you.
You bet. Okay? We got about 2 minutes.
Well, then I'll start and we'll come back to it and then get into Syria.
Good deal.
You've been to Costco, right?
Yeah.
The one in West Des Moines.
Mm-hmm.
Huge, really well lit, beautiful. It is overwhelming how big it is, but clean, pretty decent. And you've been to the Walmart in Windsor Heights. It's a little bit dingy. I'm sorry to say, Walmart folks in Windsor Heights, it's a little,
and I agree.
It's a little tougher.
I don't go to Walmart in Windsor Heights.
The people at Costco make more per hour than the people at Walmart on average throughout the country. Costco pays their people more because, and like you said, because they value what a person is worth to them, and they pay accordingly. Walmart is one of the biggest violators, not necessarily the minimum wage, but of the idea that we're going to underpay our people. And they're on the record saying our margins are so thin that we can't afford it. And they're chronically the folks that underpay because it's their freedom to do so. When you have a situation where folks who work at a particular employer feel like they're underpaid, which means that they feel like they're undervalued, they don't care about their jobs as much. You see this in bars, you see this in grocery stores, you see this everywhere. If you're a place, I was a patron at a bar in town where the owner this is a bad owner. Let's not split hairs. This has nothing to do with the minimum wage necessarily, but he's a bad owner and it paid his people inconsistently. But when they complained about it, he